Hi everyone, welcome back to a scrapbook process video and thank you for joining me again today. Today I am going to be using the Joyful Notes collection by Pink Paisley. I really like this collection and I'll point out the exact reason why later on in this video. But this is a really pretty collection and I am going to struggle using it. Again, I'll talk about that later in the video, but the only thing I bought actually for this collection was the 6x8 pad and I believe the sticker sheet, the puffy stickers, and an ephemera pack. And I'm actually excited about just having a 6x8 pad to use with it. I think this is the second collection that I bought and I didn't purchase any 12x12 papers. So this collection is very heavily based towards card making. But again, I will point out, there's too many elephants in the room. There's too many elements that I really liked about this collection. Anyways, I am following a sketch from Allison Davis. It was from her pattern paper play class. I did not record a lot of that class. It was just bad timing, and with the surgery and everything, I just did what I could. But I will share the layouts that I have done with that class in my layout share. I believe there was a couple layouts in my last layout share that I already shared with you guys. So just other ones you will see in the coming up layout share. I don't intend to do a layout share for a little while, just so you know, but they will be in there. Anyways, so I'm not sure the name of the shape, but it's rectangles with angled sides. And you saw me cut, I didn't show it all, but I took the 6x8 pads. I picked about 7 patterns, I think, and I am following the sketch fairly closely. I think I put my embellishment clusters in a different spot than she did, but I have cut down those 6x8 pieces of paper down to 1" by 2" pieces. And here I'm just showing you a little bit of a trick to get the angled sides, to get them all to basically match. You can take a piece of chipboard, cut it down, and keep making sure to keep the straight side along the piece that you want to cut so it doesn't get crooked. And you can put the chipboard piece on both sides of your cutter and move it along, and then you'll get the same angled cut on both ends of the pattern paper. I hope all that makes sense. Here it's a little bit tricky because these pieces are so short, but I just took a longer piece of the chipboard to make sure that the line still went straight across. And when I'm cutting, I'm making sure the corner of the edge that I want to cut along lines up with where the cutter will cut. That way it cuts it. Now I'm going to tell you right now, I went to make the layout and put these pieces down, and I didn't realize that on the sketch, because I didn't even pay attention, there's rows with this angle going down to the right, and then there's also rows with the angle going down to the left. So I didn't put all of that in there, but I did have to go back and cut a whole bunch more. And I was like, dang it. Right now I am looking for a photo map for my photos. I do have, I believe these are about 3x3 photos, and I'm going to first take a piece of white cardstock and cut it down so that it can be a white border. And there is 3 of the photos here on the left-hand side of the layout, and there is also 1 of the photos on the right-hand side of the layout. You will see kind of how they go as we make the layout. So right now I'm cutting down a longer strip so that I don't have to mat each photo that's on the left-hand page, and a smaller strip for the photo that's going to be on the right-hand page. They don't line up, so if it's not completely exact, I'm not worried about it, because there is 4x6 photos in the middle of it all, so it works out. I didn't have to worry about it being completely perfect. The other thing, however, I did need was a photo mat to kind of help these photos stand out, because there's a bunch of smaller scrap pieces on the layout So mounting the photos just on white they wouldn't have stood out. They would have gotten lost in the layout. Um, so I definitely wanted to add a pattern in the background. The hardest part was trying to find a pattern that, one, I haven't already used in these little strips, because if I used one of those, then again, it would kind of get lost behind the photos and the photos wouldn't stand out. And the other thing was there wasn't really a solid, like that tone on tone that you can see is the one I decided on. At first, I wasn't sure how well it was going to work, but it was really my only choice that was left in, with, again, what I haven't used in the little strips. So I did choose to use that darker kind of tone on tone pattern. It's not really tone on tone because it's two different blues, but you get what I'm saying. The other thing you'll notice is that they, like I said, I only had the 6x8 pieces, and this is longer than 8 inches, this here with the photos. However, I just cut the 6x8 piece to stretch, and you'll see that I'm not gluing them down right at this point, because I wasn't, again, 100% sure that this color was going to work. I kind of go all over the place with this layout, to be honest. It took me quite a few days to get this layout done. But you can see I'm just going to take two pieces of the 6x8 and line them up together. And when the whole layout's done, like, you don't even notice. I honestly completely forgot that I had even done it that way. So I do just kind of jimmy rig the two pieces to look like a longer piece. Here is where I go ahead, and I thought I would just leave, since I wasn't sure about the background or the photo mat for the photos, I thought I would go ahead with the strips and work on that part, and then once they were down, I could figure out which color I liked for the photo mat. But I quickly decide that having the photo mat there is kind of just going to be annoying. Then I find, then I realized that I didn't have the shapes that angled down to the left. So I thought I would try to build the second row and, just kind of count in how many I would need to cut so I wouldn't cut a bunch. Honestly, that just became annoying as well. And I finally said, oh, just forget it. I'm just going to go cut a bunch more. Um, and to be honest, I did end up with some extras, but I actually had to cut a few more as well. So I really didn't end up with very many leftovers. So that kind of made me happy. I used up everything most everything that I wanted to with these little strips. Now, one thing I've done with a couple of these layouts, these sketches with all these little pieces, I've used the same order of the papers that in the same row across the page. So again, here, I'm going to do the same thing. And the only difference is I move, on the other layouts, I moved them, say, like 2 over in each row so that the same order of pattern papers would still be there. Let me think about how I said that. So yeah, the same order would be there, but I just moved them over to each row so that it kind of just cycled through the pattern papers. I didn't necessarily do that with this layout. I did keep the same order, and that's why I have actually the row on the left, is so I didn't have to keep trying to remember which paper went up next to which paper. I just kept that row there and referred to it with every one of these rows that I made. So the difference is I'm not really moving these 2 over to get the same cycled pattern. I'm just kind of randomly picking what's going where. And keeping in mind, so let's say that blue paper with the darker blue script, I knew it was like in the middle. So the next row I put it down lower, and then the next row I just didn't even have it in there. So the next row I put it up higher. So kind of like it would zigzag along the layout. And the same goes for all the patterns. So you can see the stripe on the very right, and then it goes to the very top, and then goes kind of in the middle, and then down a little bit, and then back up. So it bounces, all the patterns bounce up and down along the layout. So again, I'm keeping them in the same order. If you look, like the blue script will have this flower above it, and that flower will have the darker flower above it. So doing that really helps save a lot of time in trying to figure out, like, okay, which pattern should I put here? Which pattern? Oh, these patterns are touching. You don't have to worry about all that. It really, at least for me, it makes it go a little bit quicker and easier, but you can see that the patterns are still all over the place. If you looked at my layout, if you look at the layout at the end, I don't think it's something you would really notice, like, oh, those are all in the same order, even being a scrapbooker. Um, so that's just a little tip for doing this if this is something you like. I will throw in there really quick that off screen, when I was cutting all of these pieces, I did ink them all with my pewter I think that's the name of it, close to my heart ink. So it is my favorite ink. I'm definitely glad that I got it before. I've had it for a while, and I do have the reinker. So unfortunately, it's not available anymore, but any kind of gray that you can use. One thing I like about it is because if you add enough ink, you can even get the look of black. So any kind of gray ink will work probably just the same. Now on the sketch, Allison Davis has, of course, stitching lines, no surprise there. But I wanted to show you, instead of stitching, and I did think about stitching, there's some gold. I'm sure you've probably seen, as I've worked on this layout so far, some of the pattern papers have gold accents on them. And so, of course, I wanted to use my peel-offs. I'm kind of getting back into using these again because you guys know, if you've been following me for a while, that I love my peel-offs. So I'm going to go ahead and, in place of the stitching lines that Allison had, I'm going to use my peel-offs, and I'm just using a gold color. I don't know the name of it, but I really like how it turned out. At first it was a little bit too much, but I think once the whole layout comes together, and again, having these photos matted so they stand out, it I think the gold really actually turned out, and I like it. So, and I put the strips in the exact same spots that she had her stitching lines. So I basically followed where her stitching was. The only difference is I didn't stitch. I just used a peel off. So I guess that's another tip or trick. If you don't want to do stitching and you have some peel offs, try adding the peel offs in place of the stitching. So the other thing I mentioned, I was inking my edges. I'm going to ink these edges. I don't know if you've seen me throughout the video. I've inked them multiple times because I keep having to trim them up. But I do think this blue actually turned out, it worked really well. Oh, and the other thing with the peel-offs, I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of just eyeballed it. I didn't have them go all the way across to where behind the photos would be, just to save some peel-offs. And again, the peel-offs weren't the full length, but with those, you can easily just butt them up together, and you really can't see, if you're careful about it, you really can't see where they meet. So that's another good thing about the peel-offs as well. So on this side of the layout, I mentioned there were some 4x6s in between the photos that were on the left and the small photo on the right. And so here are the 4x6 photos, and I don't really know what happened. If you can tell on the layout now, I'm lining them up on the right hand side, but the top two like stick off the left hand. So the bottom one must not have been a full 4x6. Um, so I, again, I'm not really sure what happened, but oh well. Now, same thing with the side. I'm going to follow the same pattern that I had on the left hand page. The biggest difference with this side is I was kind of ready to be done with this layout. I'm not gonna lie. So I didn't even lay them out. I just started gluing them down. I, yeah, I skipped again through all of that because it's all just the same, lining them up, gluing them down. I did try to use my T-square ruler, but if you guys are like me, it doesn't matter what you do, things aren't going to be straight. So I didn't take too much time with that. So at this point, I basically have all the pattern paper in the background, and this is where it gets to be even more trickier, I guess. Normally at this point, I'm like ready to embellish and I'm super excited with the embellishments for this collection being very heavily, there's not a lot of actual embellishments like shapes. There's a whole lot of tags, there's a whole lot of frames and labels, and there's a lot of things, like I mentioned, based towards card making. Like you can see the word congrats or thinking of you. Some of those you can use on a scrapbook layout, but nothing was working for this layout. So I thought I would really try to play with everything and push myself out of my comfort zone, like using these labels and tags and just playing around with everything. But yeah, it's just going to be a little bit of a struggle. Again, this will take me over multiple days as well. I kind of decided at first I really wanted to try to keep, she had a label, I think, on the sketch over here on the right hand side between where I'm kind of building that cluster now. And I really liked how it looked on her layout. And I thought that would be a great place to kind of do a little bit of journaling. And I'm just going to play though. At this point, again, everything's so like label and tag and stamps and all kinds of random things that I kind of have to step away, again, work on something else until I figure it out. So at this point, I figure, okay, I better figure out my title. So again, I was like, oh, great. What do I use for letter stickers? Because I knew that I wanted to use my metal dies. And I'm going to actually, luckily, they had this pattern paper on the 6x8 pad. So I'm actually going to use these and I'm going to make it cut the alphabet letters out with this like, what do you call library card pattern that they have there. And honestly, when it's done, when the letters are done, you don't even really hardly notice. Oh, one thing I wanted to show you really quick here. If you have any kind of die, metal die, I know everybody wonders how to cut those little tab things off. Honestly, I cut mine, if it say it's in between the letter A and B, I'll cut it with the snips really, really close to the B. And then whatever's left on the A side, I will take it and I will grab it with those pliers and wiggle it back and forth, and it comes off in the pliers. And then I can just put it in the garbage. So that's just a little trick for you guys if you have a lot of metal dies like me and need to get those little nubbies off. I know if you snip both sides, then sometimes they go flying. So it works really well just to take a little needle nose pliers and grab a hold of the little tabby and wiggle it back and forth and hold it onto it as close as you can to the die so that the whole piece comes off. Um, and then I did try a couple different colors that I thought I would use for the title. I did decide on green, and I wanted to show you guys here how I keep track of, or how I kind of, I guess keep track is the right word, when I'm putting dies together, when I cut out a shape, and I like to back it with cardstock like a lot of people do. I like to keep track of how many I need to cut by putting the main color down so I know I have each one of those, and then each layer underneath it. So underneath the P, you can see I have 3 other P's, because for me, I prefer to add 3 layers of the cardstock. So now I'm cutting out the A, and I'm going to need 2 more A's and 2 more R's, etc. It's just one good way to kind of help know how many you have and how many more you need to cut out. And then I just, again, glue them together like I'm showing you guys here. Stack them up and I kind of glue them. I did go ahead and I added some inking to the edges of these letters just to try to help them stand out a little bit more as well. In the video, to me, you can't really see the letters all that great, but in person you can, it's a lot easier to read. So I did go with the green color, by the way. And right here, this bird is the whole reason I fell in love with this collection. I kind of wish, like, I don't know if they had an ephemera pack and I just didn't buy it or what, but I kind of wish there was more of those birds because I freaking love that bird. He's just so cute. You guys know me and my birds, so you know, and we're at the nature park in these photos, so why not add a bird, right? Because that's perfect. But I'll add a bird to anything. I'm not afraid. Um, Sorry to those out there that don't really like the birds. But he is the main reason I fell in love with this collection. But the colors are also really, they're kind of unique colors in my opinion. Um, so yeah, anyways, I am going to start working on the clusters. I did decide that that little square journaling box was, it went really well there. It had a little bit of the pattern that's also in one of the pattern papers, and the bird sat there really well with that piece. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue all of those down. The biggest thing I wish I would have thought of is I wouldn't have, if I would have thought about it, I wouldn't have glued the letter N down just yet, because a lot of things I kind of wanted to tuck underneath it, but everything's glued down. So I'm going to kind of have to fiddle with things just a little bit, but it all works out. I did kind of pull it up a little bit, and if you look closely enough, you can kind of see that it's been pulled up a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about it. So gonna get my little birdie there, and I will end up doing my journaling in that box that's next to the birdie. I haven't done my journaling yet. I'm not exactly sure of the name of the nature park, and honestly I wanted to get this layout up for you guys because I haven't had very many videos up for you guys lately. So I just wanted to go ahead and get that started, or get that going again. Now, when I build clusters across 2 pages, just like moving the pattern papers up and down in a zigzag, I like to do that with my clusters as well. So right now I'm looking at it like the bird and the florals and the journal card is one cluster. So naturally my eye goes to a space up above for a close cluster, which you could put it to the right where that flower is above the very right picture, and then down again. But I really wanted something to go in this spot. And I don't know, honestly know if she had that on her layout, on her sketch or not, that cluster there, or if it was just on the right hand side. But I decided right away that I wanted to have a cluster. But however, having that cluster there up above, it didn't look right having a cluster up above the very right hand side. So I went ahead and I decided to try to see what it looked like moving that cluster down. And sure enough, I liked it so much better down here on the bottom right of the photo on the right hand side. I liked it better than I did having it up above. That way the clusters go from the bird up to the pink label with the date, and then back down to the floral on the right. So it kind of again does that zigzag up and down, up and down. And it also creates a triangle. You've probably heard a lot about triangles and things like that, rule of thirds with layouts and design. And honestly, don't stress yourself out too much about rules. The biggest thing I suggest is just having fun. And if you like the way it looks, then go for it. Put as much as you want. I really kind of had fun at this point, challenging myself, as even though it took a long time, challenging myself to use different things like these label dies and these banners and all that stuff. I had fun doing it. And I could have probably stopped here and it would have been just fine. But I was like, no, because I don't want to end up with a bunch of embellishments and not very much paper. So I kind of just kept going, and I really like how it turned out. I kind of wanted on this side something kind of sticking out so it's not just like a cluster down below. I tried that pink label, or excuse me, pink tag. I just trimmed off the top so it looked like it was kind of peeking out from behind the photo, but it was just too pink. I guess it's kind of a pinkish purple, but you guys get what I'm saying. But then I cut apart another one of like the labels, stickers, or journaling little boxes in the green, and I really like that. And I like that green there because that brings the green over from the title. And So that really helped pull that green over. There's green in the pattern papers, but that just brought over the main green from the title. So really there's not a lot left. I'm going to add a couple more things, some puffy stickers and etc. And that is pretty much my layout. So I hope you guys enjoyed this process video. I know it's a little bit longer, but that's okay. That's just kind of how I am, right? So and I also added some hearts and some puffy hearts around on the layout as well. So this is my layout. There's a couple still shot photos. Please let me know below if you like this layout, and I will see you in the next process video or the next collection cleanup video. I am kind of been doing both lately. So I will see you next time. All right, bye guys.